If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages and all points in between, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the Nof, Idaho SHR Media Network studio, happily ensconced within my home, and it's mine, and I'm happy, and it's wonderful. I am your conservative Sherpa. I kind of look like this, guiding you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Please note that what you're about to hear for the next hour, maybe 2 hours, consists of my opinions and my opinion only, and those of my guest tonight. Guess what? I have a great guest. And he's here. This is the first time that I have ever spoken on the air, had him on the air. I can't tell you who he is just now, but I will say that I am doing the job that the American media maggots won't. I am fundamentally changing America one leftist diaper at a time. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversations. We are still serving stiff drinks right here in the saloon, along with facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, clarity, tradition, and common sense. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law, and cars. We talk about it all right here at the saloon, where the speech is free, but the booze is not. There are 28 people already watching live. Thanks to everybody. You can be guaranteed that it's not for me. It's for my guest. I also have a metric ton of people who are in Chatabus erectibus. It's originally it was Fert Snapple. Welcome to him. Ricky Robinson is in chat, going tick tick tick. How come? Why for? How come you're not on? Lost Wanderer is here. Indicating, of course, that not all who wander are lost. Brian is in here as well. And Mike is in the chat room. Mission Ready Men is in the chat room. Unleash Jeremy Hansen is in the chat room. Sean Lewis is in the chat room. Who have I missed? Dale Benson. Haven't seen you in quite some time. Welcome back to chat. Kind of rhymes, but kind of not. Phantom is in chat, and Lost Wanderer. Whoa! Now, Lost Wanderer says 30 to go to 500. See, this is where I would customarily pound the crap out of the, hey, get on right here, right now, and subscribe. So let me go ahead and run this right now, because I thought that maybe I had all the right stuff. Now look down below at the Chiron, Kirohn, Chiron. That's how it's really spelled. Don't believe anybody else. It says, if you look below, we have 31 subscribers yet to go before we get to 500 at the SHR Media Network. Now, when I bring my guest on, which will be very shortly, my guest subscribers on YouTube kick our mortal asses from here to Zephron and all points in between. But it's interesting that in between the time that I last checked and now Lost Wanderer has indicated, whoa, we have one more subscriber. So if you're on the SHR Media YouTube channel, then if you would please subscribe. Pretty please. So this is about the time. First, I have to apologize up front. I had promoted this on my show, indicating that I will have my guest who is on very, very shortly. BZ, you kept saying that. You've said that for the past hour. No, I swear, he'll be on very shortly. Which is the only way that I can be on personally is very shortly because I'm not very tall. He is, I promoted the show as being, okay, get in chat. And if you have a question, you can send the question to my guest in chat. Cool. That is still how it's going to work, except I also put the phone number in there. And I said, hey, you can call too, but no, you can't because I have two things plugged into this mixer and my third was going to be the phone for him. And sorry, callers, my guest takes priority over you. I know, a little violin right here. I'm sorry to play it, but you can't call in because I can't get my damn board to work. However, those who know me and love me and think I'm way fat, ugly, ancient, and stupid, well, you would be correct because that's how things roll here in the... Oh, Jersey Joe is here. Jersey Joe says, welcome. And Sean says, I'm a vibe killer. And good. Those are the people that we have right now. So with further ado, because why would I do anything except with further ado? I'd like to welcome my guest tonight, who is Bill from Curious Cars. Bill, are you there, sir?
I am busy. How are you doing?
Excellent, excellent. So what we're doing tonight is Bill is going to be on the phone, and it will look something like this. So in lieu of video, this is Bill of Curious Cars. And we will conduct all sorts of investigations, deep, shallow, moral, immoral, as the show goes on tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, like I said, children of all ages, thanks so kindly for watching live tonight and watching the show later in podcast, because I have a very unique and crafty individual just for you tonight. In the first hour, no politics. Instead, it's Bill of Curious Cars. Now, this is what Bill, I've determined myself personally, is. He is a rogue, a rapscallion, a reprobate, a rake, a rascal, a ravager, a ribald renegade, a roustabout, a ruffian, a rebel, a recusant, a rake hell, a reaver, a routier, a rudesby, a reparee, and even a rantapole. I'm not making it up. These are actual words in the English language. So yes, friends and neighbors, it's the guy that I've watched for a long time, possessing a YouTube channel, as I mentioned earlier, entitled Curious Cars. And let me see if I can find that site. There it is right now. So if you are watching and not listening later in podcast, you can see that I have Curious Cars here. And if you're just listening, just go to YouTube, insert in the empty field Curious Cars, and boom, quick like a bunny, you will be taken right here. So thanks to Bill for being here. Bill, I should mention, on YouTube, has only 168,000 subscribers, making us look like serious, unserious pikers. So welcome, Bill, to the show.
Thank you, sir. It just proves there's a lot of easy to entertain people out there. I know.
Listen, if fat, furry, ancient didn't entertain people, I wouldn't have 2 viewers. And thank God I've got more than 2 viewers right now. Hey, 58 people listening live right now for me because I'm a moron. That's exquisite. So thanks again for being in the show, because it's Pacific. It's 8:09 Pacific and it's 11:09 East Coast, which is where Bill is. So thanks for being here and staying up so
My
late.
pleasure.
Before we get going, I did one of these. I'd like to illustrate the various points on social media and the internet where you can find, follow, and subscribe to Bill's offerings. And because he's on the phone, I will be describing them to him as well. Here's where Bill lives on X, and it's x.com/carscurious, @carscurious. Tons. Let me scroll through this. Tons of stuff right here. Hey, look, it's my promo. Thanks, Bill. And scroll all of this stuff all the way down. So Bill is in fact on X. That's one place you can go to find him. Here, as I've indicated prior, just a few seconds, Curious Cars on YouTube. He has his very own YouTube channel, Curious Cars on YouTube. 168K subscribers. Parenthesis, you bastard, end of parenthesis. Okay, move on, BZ. Also, I discovered, and I did not know this until I went diving. Oh, speaking of diving, damn it, Jim. I dive, by the way. I will describe this to Bill. This is a new graphic created by Sean from SHR Media, indicating that I am BZ and I'm always taking a deep dive for the truth. Let's go back here. I did not know curiouscars.com. There is a website which you can go to with Curious Cars, and you can clearly indicate and see there are all sorts of videos right here. The Alfa Romeo, Olds 88, 1990 Lincoln Town Car, 76 Olds, so weiter. So you can see those there as well. Let me pull this off the stage and continue. So, hey, Bill, are there any social media sites or otherwise that I may have missed other than those that you would like to mention right now?
No, sir. You got them all. In fact, it's a miracle I'm on any of them because I'm, completely illiterate as far as as far as technology goes. So the fact that I can make anything work at all is pretty notable. X is. I'm enjoying the hell out of X. I have to say. I've only recently started drumming it up, if you will, or interacting, because I have an innate fear of interacting with humans. So it's been something to overcome, but it's been great fun, and I've been doing it more and more, and I hope to keep going at it. It's YouTube's great, but it's once a week for me or once a month, and it takes a while to do. With X, I can snap a photo of some really screwed up crap I drive by and post it, and it's instant interaction, and there's a joy to that. So yeah, X is really my prime. You brought up the website, and I was like, oh man, yeah, I remember. I do have that somewhere somehow. I'll have to look into that.
Well, I always have to make sure that I look into the background of people that I have on the show. Not that. I mean, go through social media and see what I can find of people. Because if I have somebody on the air, and especially if I take the time to interview somebody, especially for the first time, I want to make sure that I am honest and forthright and upfront, and that I promo their stuff. Because as I indicated when you and I chatted earlier, I'm not here to embarrass anybody. I'm here to find out what makes people tick. And I only have the creme de la creme on the show, the people that I enjoy, that I want to watch, authors I want to read, people that I want to interact with. And Bill is just one of those people. So I've been watching your videos for some time, and I always thought that is one guy who is absolutely jam-packed with sarcasm, a snip of peckishness, pretty much exactly just like me. And then so when I saw you on X, because you had just, as you indicated, you just recently got into X, you were asking for some contact with the actual outside world. Much to your misfortune, I thought, okay, I'm already at no. Maybe I get to yes if I ask him to be on the show. And damn it, Jim, you actually said yes. And that led to some a fairly serious back and forth negotiations with our attorneys. Objections were made and noticed. Contracts were in fact drawn up, and that led to truly an hour phone call between myself and Bill a few days ago, where I noticed in my brain housing group, I said, man, the more I talk to this cat, the more I got to have him on the show. And the other thing I'd like to mention before we get going is that you can jump into the sumptuous and palatial chat room. Sorry, Bill won't be able to see it, but my chat room has pretty much remained the same. If I can find it, it looks like this. So jump into BZ's plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room through the SHR Media YouTube channel. And by way of that, if you have questions for Bill live, then stick them into the chat room. I'll ask Bill, you'll get your answers, and all will be well with the earth. There will be no tilting of the axis. Nothing about that at all. Bill has been kind enough to say that he will answer questions. So like I say, don't be silent. Don't be hesitant. Get right out and just, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat room, if you would, pretty please. So here we are tonight with Bill of Curious Cars. And before, Bill, if you don't mind, before we get into the gritty, cutthroat viscera of the car world, can we talk a little bit about your background, where you grew up, schools, maybe military, zany things you may or may not have done in your life, stuff like that? For example, like maybe start with where you were born, what kind of a guy, what part of the U.S. were you raised in?
Absolutely. Chicago, Illinois, Evanston, to be precise. Many years ago was born, but moved away when I was very young to Florida in 1976. So I didn't have much experience with that. Came down here. Apparently I was sickly or skinny, which is actually laughable. And, they thought the Florida heat would be good for me. So ironically, this thing that is the bane of my existence was caused by my own physical condition as a child. And I was raised in Naples, Florida, where you learn how to sort of, basically if you came to Naples, Florida in 1976, you have the attitude of Mr. Howell. You like to, you're golfing, you're playing tennis, you're, anything but what a hip young kid would do. So it was that kind of a town. And, that's where I grew up. So
already in chat, Brian DeRocher is saying, fucking Chris, worst human in the world.
Oh, Jesus, that bastard.
And Bill, Brian says, Bill finds the best cars. And I would agree. Oh, Brian also says, he was left at a gas station on the way to Florida too. How sad. How very sad.
Did I tell that story? Yeah, that is a fact. Apparently there was some sort of a collision on the highway. And the story goes that, the pair, they pulled over, there was broken glass. One of the windows broke out and they're going to get it fixed. They're heading off in a rental or something. And my sister in the back seat said, what about the baby? Shouldn't we take him?
Yeah.
And And then the story then goes, oh my God, there was panic and they turned around and ran. Yeah. I think it was more like, they remembered, she noticed. I think I would have been, right now I'd be named Goober and I'd be pumping gas in some, suburb of Macon, with a goofy hat on. Frankly, I'd probably be happier in life, but anyway, that was thwarted by my sister remembering they left me behind, and they went back and got me, and there it is. So I continued on with that family.
So I'm sure that you were a great scholar in school, just like I was. I breezed my way through school. I breezed my way through college. No, that's a lie. My mom said consistently when she was in between beatings, something similar to, why don't you make something? You think I'm kidding. And she would say, why don't you do something with yourself? So school was not my favorite subject. And so then moving on, did you, Bill of Curious Cars, have any sort of favorite subjects as you were likewise breezing through school?
Well, I did. Yeah, I was originally an English major. In fact, and I had no interest in school or college or any of it. It was all just forced, parental pressure, if you will. They wanted something different from what they had. God bless them. And they didn't have Adderall in those days, so I couldn't make it work for them. But I tried, and I went, and I did what I could. And English. I ended up in college in Ireland in a weird little place that all went south. But I was majoring in diplomacy at that point. And the plan was that I would end up working in some embassy somewhere.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit. I didn't see that coming.
Well, there it is. There was a lot of weird plans made for me that didn't come to fruition. At one stage, I was supposed to go to hotel school in Switzerland. That didn't work out either. In fact, that never happened at all. I chickened out at the last minute and thought, what the fuck? I mean, pardon my language, but all I could think of was faulty towers, and so none of it worked. And in college, then in Ireland, I went through it. I was doing actually fairly well because on the plane I read the Atlas Shrugged for the first time. And I thought, wow, this is, I can be somebody. It was a lie, but I thought that. And I took off, as much as I was working hard, student council president, it was incredible. And then I quit to join a rock band, which was kind of, screwed up because I don't really play any instruments. But I thought, we could do this and make it work. And then bizarrely that failed. So, then the path towards the current position happened. But, there's a lot of strange avenues en route to where I've ended up. And I know, thank God my mother's passed, because she'd be incredibly disappointed at this point. Oh. If she ever met Chris, for instance, she would just explain that she had raised me a lot better than that. So, it's better the way it is now.
Well, so obviously, since you were the clear scholar, did I hear you say that you went to school in Ireland?
In Dublin, I did. Yeah, my mother is Irish. I'm a first generation American. My mother and father met in Chicago as a Polish and Irish immigrant. And she tracked it down.
And Brian in chat said, so Bill introduced flip-flops to Ireland, eh?
Good Lord, this guy is very good with the notations. I feel that. Yeah, nobody else had him over there. I mean, I can't prove it. But then, yeah, people looked at him funny. I mean, everyone in Ireland has these scrunched, fucked up toes because it's freezing all the time. So they have to wear these boots and 3 layers of socks. And it's one of the first things I noticed. We'd go back to my little flat, and my friends would take their shoes off. And God, put them back on, man.
Ew.
I don't want to see that. They're like, man, your feet are never free here, And so I did bring what I think is probably some of the best of Florida with me over there, namely weed and flip flops, and it worked out pretty good for me. But it was cold. You had to pee away a sheen of ice on the toilet every morning. Like the landlords were really cheap with the heat. So, but it's better than the heat, quite frankly. I've always done better with the cold.
Cynical Survival in the chat room says, Bill, Dalton sends his regards from prison.
Oh, God. That's what. Yeah, he should. I mean, the thing about Dalton is some of this stuff, I'm going to admit it right now. By the way, the first interview I've ever had about Curious Cars, and I'm honored. Part of that is because I'm the head of the Creepy Loners Association. And
Ditto.
You happened to catch me, in this weird moment of let me, interact with people. But a lot of the stuff I might, the 2 people I don't have to do any emphasis on at all is Chris and Dalton. I mean, they are even beyond whatever it is I can portray. They are just the most screwed up people. And Dalton is, I haven't talked to him in a year now. I had it with him. That was it. It was done. I gave that guy a job for I don't know, 5 years of complete misery. And, the people, by the way, are listening are thinking, who the hell is Dalton? But anyway, he was an idiot with the motorcycle. He decided he was going to be a motorcycle guy. He puts a sticker on the back of it, capable of evading high-speed pursuit. And like within a week of putting that sticker on, he's tackled by 5 burly cops at a traffic light after running from them and chickening out. And, it became a thing, and now he's in jail, and he wanted me to get a lawyer for him, which, I might as well just set fire to whatever money I have. And anyway, so we parted ways, and I'm not unhappy about that.
So, okay, for the people I highly suggest, if you guys have not watched, I'm going to be playing some videos a little bit later on. But if you have not been to Curious Cars on YouTube, Bill's site there, and watched his reviews, the reason that he's on tonight is because he reminds me of me, except a guy with more hair, better looking, and younger. But it's true. But yeah. You gotta go see his site. He has a great website. Now, I'm looking at another chat over on Rumble. So this is the only other one that I get to see every once in a while. There's a guy named Whiskey Dale in Rumble who says, "Are you still a Cub?" or asks, "Are you still a Cub fan?"
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I mean, I'm not obsessive. I can't tell you the ERAs and the lineups or anything, but I look at the standings and try to catch a game or two.
And also in chat here, Brian says the Twisted Nitwits was Dalton's gang.
Yeah, he was wearing
true?
What do you call the motorcycle gang leather thing? He was walking. I mean, man, look, the last thing we need to make this show about is anything to do with that guy. He has already dominated far too much of my life over the last few years, and I would rather stick a molten hot knitting needle in my eye than keep discussing him. So, but yeah, he is. Twisted nitwits, retards, or the young gays for Christ. I don't know what the hell he had on the back of that thing, but it was. I'm just glad I don't see the guy anymore.
Some people have what I call a predicating event that sends them in a direction that they hadn't foreseen when they were when they're going in one particular direction in life, and then something happens and they end up going into an entirely different direction. For example, I had one that I will talk about later because the show isn't about me right now, in law enforcement. So did you, Bill of Curious Cars, did you have one, so to speak, that sent you someplace doing something that you hadn't quite anticipated?
Yeah, I would have to say it was the quitting the college to join the band, and then we all moved to Tampa from Dublin. I brought these Irish guys, but man, we drove by a store called Badcock Furniture. I never thought they would stop laughing. For some reason, they thought that was the funniest shit they had ever seen in their lives, that this store existed. But I had all these Irish guys in Tampa, eating big plates of spuds in the apartment, and we were recording music and, doing what we do. But of course, it all failed miserably. And when they left and when it failed, I kind of am sitting there in Tampa, and this has changed the course of my life, because now what the hell do I do? And that sort of steered me down. I started selling clock radios on eBay. It seems like a really good way to avoid a job. I'd go around to these thrift. I was doing it during the band stuff to make a few bucks. You go in a thrift store, you find some crappy thing and you clean it up and put it on eBay, and some twit buys it. And so I did that with a company called it VintageTechnology.com. And, that was then going to be the thing. And so I was working on that, and then that somehow led to a car of some variety. And of course, the cars have always been a thing for me. I've always had a deep, deep love for them. And once I got into the car thing, a friend of mine who had a job in Miami that he hated said, "Man, I'll come there. We'll start doing cars." And he did. And then, we did that for years. He turned out to be a douchebag, and then I went somewhere else and kept with the car thing, and that's probably what sort of steered it all to where it is. And then I ended up at a place called Auto House with a big Austrian lunatic named Peter, very nice guy, but insane. I went in. I said, I want to be your internet guy. I'm at Auto House in Naples. I want to be your, and I'm showing him printouts from eBay, and he said, no, you're gonna sell cars on my lot. And I'm like, no, I'm not, Peter. I don't like people, and I'm not going to do that. And he said, no, that is what you're going to do. And I said, no, I'm not. And it turned out he was right. So I ended up doing that. And I'm not going to lie, without getting too deep into it, a few years after that, my sister's working for some, I don't know what you call it, like a investment banker firm or something. And some group of guys is coming up with this crazy idea to list cars on eBay. And I'm like, I've listed 1,000 cars on eBay. I'm wondering why this guy's getting startup money, but he did. And his big thing was cars had to have videos. And of course, at Auto House, any stupid task was passed on to me. So Peter hands me this Miata and says, go do a video of this thing. And I'm like, what do you do, video? And he's like, a video, take a video of it. I'm like, what am I supposed to say about it? The Miata, I don't play tennis. And I took it and did a video, and that was the first one, and started doing more, and it just became fun. And that's kind of what led to the whole Curious Cars thing as time went on.
Let's talk about your involvement and background with automobiles. Were you interested in cars like from an early age? You were a kid and you'd see something go by and you'd go, oh, that is really cool right there. Yeah.
And my dad didn't know a car from an airplane, so it didn't come from him. It's some kind of natural thing, starting with Matchbox cars that sort of never stopped. And I had a big one when I was about 10. My sister started dating this guy who turned out to be an enormous asshole. This is somebody I don't even discuss on the air, but he also was an enormous impact on my life. And he was a real car guy. And so from the age of 10, he was kind of around probably till I was 17 or 18. And he had a lot to do with, grooming my car love, if you will. And it just, never went away.
So the guy that you were working for initially, hey, tell you what, folks, I'm not going to take a break. I'm not going to do any breaks because I need to get through this stuff as much as possible. And I want to make sure that I talk to Bill and squeeze as much stuff as possible into the show. So I just remind everybody.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And folks, we're talking to Bill of Curious Cars. He is live on the phone, as you can see on the screen. And this, again, go to the go to the YouTube channel. In the field, type in Curious Cars. You'll see his site. It looks like, if I can get there, this. And look at as I scroll down here, there are tons and tons of videos. That's home. Let's go to videos. Look at all the videos that he has right here. Oh, look, a Bentley Flying Spur. If this doesn't keep you occupied for a long time with all the cars that he has here for you to drool at, I don't know what's wrong with you. And maybe I don't know what's wrong with you because I don't know what's wrong with you. So when you were told by this guy, Bill of Curious Cars, hey, go do a video. Did you know anything about video? I would not have.
Not a damn thing. Yeah. I mean, I knew the iPhone had a video feature.
Okay, so you started with a phone. You started with an iPhone then.
I did, and actually, I've switched to a camera. But in fact, the last few videos, I've gone back to the phone because it's a pretty good video taker. I use an addendum microphone, and it seems to work fine. But yeah, so I went out there with my phone. I lived in a crappy house, so I asked. I had a really fancy neighbor with a great house, and can I take a video in your yard? And he said, yeah. So I, put it out there, and I'd always look through the window. I see his wife in his underwear and shit, and I'd feel terrible about it. But she was not an unappealing woman, quite honestly. And it sort of, became I feel like we had a thing. But I'd walk around the car and talk about it. And in the early days, it was all about the cars. And, as the videos progressed, I realized that this was a great medium for me to release all the toxins within me about all the horrible things and people that I know and that have happened to me. And I just started, and the first 10, the bane of my life is that these videos are too long. And I just can't get around that because the first 10 minutes of a car review video is usually about how some idiot friend has screwed me over and, has very little to do with cars. And, but to me, that's just a way to get it out. It's cathartic. It feels good. And, at that point, I just want to go with it.
But okay, Brian in chat, sorry you can't see this, but Brian said, and it was such a quinky dink that you just mentioned this. Brian says, okay, how long were you at Auto House the first time and then started Auto Europa with Marty? And then he said, and this is what made me laugh. Also, Marty loved unappealing women.
Oh, dear God, is that true? Man, is that true? I mean, Marty would stick his dick in the mashed potatoes. I mean, he was the most screwed up individual I have ever met in my life. And I've met some bad people, but Marty was unique. He loved female bodybuilders, and not like the ones you'd find organically in town. He would like go seek them out at like Eastern European competitions and shit. I mean, these women would scare Lou Ferrigno, I mean. And he'd have them, then he'd somehow import them to the United States, move in with him in this little shack in the back of the dealership. And they'd just be wandering. He'd have them washing the cars or, lifting things or acting as, jacks. And it was a very, very strange experience being there. And the thing actually started with Auto Europa. This is very convoluted, so I'm not going to bore everyone with it. But Peter owned a company called Auto Europa, which I got hired at. That was bought by Marty, who had never done anything with cars, and it showed. So I was with him for a couple of years at Auto Europa when he failed miserably. And then Peter inherited his, forfeited land back and started Auto House. And that's when I went back with Peter. And then I left Auto House to go to the new Auto Europa. You can imagine how annoying this story is. And then actually went back to Auto House again a few years after that. So these two sort of sister companies that are mirror images of each other existing at the same time in Naples, and I just bounced between them, and I had friends at both.
So are you, apparently I get the deal that you're kind of a tech guy, which I am not. And it's obvious you know how to edit. We chatted about this in that first hour, and the dealio was, I go live, and you asked if, do you go live? Can I go earlier? Can I go later? All those things. And I said, yeah, you are infinitely smarter than I am in terms of you can edit. Sean initially told me, hey, why don't you do a podcast? Edit all this stuff to get, no, I can't do that.
I'm sorry. I got to interrupt you there, B. I'm sorry. It's generational. Boomers can't edit. No boomer could ever edit. It's never going to happen. I mean, the Gen Xers kind of had a little bit of it at the tail end, so we got some of that. But I think that's the difference. I just think, So I can edit, but I think, it's just a matter of place and time and that sort of thing. I'm definitely not inclined to it.
See, the reason we got the first bell of the night is boomers can't edit. Correct. Hello. Yes. And I forgot to tell you, that was the name of my third garage band. Boomers Can't Edit. And in the chat, Jeremy Hansen says, hey, ask Bill, what was his first car?
Oh, shit. 1979 Firebird Formula.
Wow. Okay. Back when they had 1,000 horsepower.
Oh, God, no. It was a Malaise car.
It was
not. It was a 79. It was, and it was devastating. It was this guy that was dating my sister. His brother had bought it somewhere, and it was some drunk in Naples who did every guardrail in town. I mean, the thing looked like someone took a hammer down the side of it. And he fixed it. So he, fixed it up, made it really nice. And then somehow they force-fed it to my my poor parents putting up with this shit. But they ended up buying it. I was only 15 and a half. I only had a learner's permit.
Wow.
So so it went in the garage. And for 6 months, and it was cheap, by the way, there's different times. But for 6 months, I had to walk by it every morning and get on the big yellow school bus. And it was devastating for a kid. Man, I was up at 2 a.m. the 16th birthday to get down and get that license. It was still to this day probably the greatest moment of my life was, having that learner's thing removed, and now I didn't have to drive with somebody next to me, and it was great. Yeah, I mean you never forget your first car.
Oh no, but like you said, 16 years old, having to get on the big yellow bus, and you walk right by a Trans Am. I mean, what a punch in the nuts is that?
It was
a big one.
I mean, poor me. It's not like I'm, looking for a canned food drive, but it was tough on a dumb young kid to, know that thing's sitting in the garage waiting for me and not being able to use it. It was cruel in a way.
Yeah, it was.
But
there's somebody named Griff in chat who says, Bill, I don't know if you recognize Griff, but he is in chat. And another person called Fursnapple. I don't know if that's somebody that you recognize. My uncle had a 62 Impala convertible anniversary gold. And Brian said, hey, my first car was a 1992 Cutlass Supreme two-door teal with a 3.1. Ooh, impressive engine. 0 to 60 in about 4 days, maybe a week, not sure. So, folks,
these are still the cars I love, by the way. That's the era, that's the era I love. They may be terrible cars, and I don't care. These are the ones I love, I grew up with.
Well, yeah, because they're your cars. They belong to you. You love them. You nurtured them. You rubbed them with wax and perhaps other things.
And I made sure to have jobs where, I worked at car lots a lot as a kid. There was a Cadillac dealership in town in Buick that I worked for, and because I made sure I'd be around them. I'd be able to touch them and get in them and play with them and drive them. And so, I exposed myself to a lot of them and got to interact with them, which is great for what I do now because, the memories are there. And they're, it's a good resource just to pull from my own experience from playing with them as a kid and crashing them and doing stupid shit with them.
But see, isn't that kind of the, how many people, you and I both said, I'm not going to make $1 million doing what I do. I just do this stuff now because I love it. I do podcasting or shows and whatnot. I enjoy it. We discussed how you do what you do in the way that you like to do it, and you're not going to compromise and do it in any other way. And I think that's another way in which both you and I resonate with each other in terms I saw someone of a kindred spirit who said, I'm not doing it for anybody but me. And if other people like that, that's great. And if they don't,
amazement, some do. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yep.
I have to make this notation. If I could pause for a second, I'd like to make an observation about your videos. Things that your viewers already know, but things that I think it's really important to emphasize and obviously mention. Yeah, your videos are entertaining. I'm going to be playing some. You're irascible, and that is a major attraction for us fans, if perhaps you think not, but it is. But that is simply not enough to satisfy a growing cadre of people. Like I mentioned, 168,000 plus subscribers to your channel, unless there is a massively important ingredient that you add that I think is critical. And that's your staggering knowledge of cars. I find it pretty amazing, and it's what attracts car folks to your channel. And you start a video. I will ask you about this in just a moment. You start a video, you go into great length about the history, the creation, and the details of all those cars. You compare the pieces of equipment inside, the accessories, the engines, the looks, the styling, the interiors, in a way that few people can. And it's like, I liken it to this. And this is why people, if you haven't watched any of his videos, you will enjoy them. It's like taking us on a journey with some side tangents along the way of cars that many of us have loved, hated, wanted. Maybe we even had them years ago. And then you bring that down to earth on walkarounds that continue to display your knowledge of all those cars. So I think the first thing is, how do you determine what car that you're going to review? Do you have a backlog or a source of vehicles where you go, yeah, I like this one, this is what I'm going to do? And then first, how do you select your cars?
No, nothing so grand. I kind of wish it were like that. I mean, quite frankly, the cars that I select are the ones that I run across. It's just opportunistic. And, I pass up a lot of cars because they don't interest me. But, if one of the dealerships I hang around with, they get a car on the lot that I love, or Dave, the wholesaler, a friend of mine, will get a great car. And like a Cybertruck recently I did, which is, it's far from anything that is in my history, but I find it fascinating that someone could make a vehicle that looks like that and sell it. And, so I thought, I want to know what this thing's all about. And having the opportunity, man, there's so many cars I want to do that I've never run across. You know how many Chevettes are left? Like 4.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and you don't get them very often. So I've gone to the point of going to auctions. I buy cars that I like and hope that I can sell them for what I paid or close to it to be able to do a review. Being a bit of an introvert, I don't go out and seek out cars that people own and, talk to them and go do the review, which is what I should do. And it goes back to what you were saying. I'd like to say that me doing the videos the way that I do them is just based on principle, but quite a bit of it is just, it's kind of who I am. I don't know how to do it any other way anyway. Even if someone explained the correct way, I'm not sure I could follow that. So basically I have a hell of a time getting cars and probably make a much harder job out of it than it needs to be. But, and the fortunate thing is when I go to the auctions, I drink very heavily. And that helps, that helps, sort of, oh my God, here's a Pinto that's jacked up in the back with, and I'll buy it. And then I'll wake up the next morning and did I buy that Pinto yesterday? I go, yeah, Bill, you did. And okay, shit. All right. Well, and then, so I better review it at that point. But yeah, so cars are tough, man. I'm making this move soon from Florida to North Carolina. I have no network of any kind there. So it may force me to start sort of trying to track cars down and do them. And when I do that, and if I do that, then I will try to have that list of the one. I've got 50 cars on a list I want to do that I've just never come across, and I'd love to. But cars are this unique and fascinating bit of history in a 20-foot or less package. I mean, you can take a car of any era and sort of get a feel for what was going on in the world at the time by looking at the car and by seeing what the colors are, what the materials are, what the dashboard looks like, what the display looks like. When you look at an 80s Pontiac and see all this, Knight Rider dashboard stuff, you get a feel for the era. And I think they're a little bit underappreciated. Cars are overappreciated in general, but I think they're a little bit underappreciated as a moment in history. And I think that's really what makes them neat. Even if people don't immediately grok why, it's not just the nostalgia of it, but it gives you a really good indication of what we were when the car was made and how that's changed. If you compare a 76 Camaro to a Cybertruck, you can, sort of get a feel for how how we've become very different. So I just think it's really neat to dive into a car and dissect it, and also to put it in the context of the time, what the news was, what the songs on the radio were, and who was doing what, and I think putting the car into that context is part of what makes it fun.
See, and I knew there were similarities between you and I. Clearly, it appears that you are a Heinlein fan, because I've been saying for years, decades basically, yeah, do you grok that concept? And that was way before AI, way before X and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So you must be a Heinlein fan at one point.
I can, very possibly.
There's a question in chat from Jeremy Hansen. Hey, ask Bill, is he a Dodge, GM, or Ford guy?
If I had to pick one, I'm a GM guy, and with great reservation, because I think GM are a bunch of idiots. But that said, the Firebird started me out. I worked at a GM store, and so that maybe it's just as simple as that. But that said, I love the peculiarities of all three.
Brian in chat also says, Bill has a story about a Darwin.
Do I?
Does that?
A Darwin?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that. Okay, let's move on.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
All right. Well, like you said, cars are like a memory trip. They're like education. They're like a journey. They're a really cool way of looking at. Well, for example, I'm an autodidact. I didn't give a shit about school. If I did anything, I taught myself, and I went through every book in my high school about war, because the history of war is the history of the planet, and you are like that. So you're a big experiential kind of guy who just soaked all of this information in, because you were through those cars, you loved those cars, you saw those cars, and they are representative to you of, I don't know, little museums of times past.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very accessible to people. I mean, even people who aren't car guys or car girls or what have you, they all had a car in their life they loved, or an experience in a car, or, several experiences in a car. But cars play a huge role in life, an enormous role. And they're there for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they're, usually in the background, but still always there. And they're just, it steers me towards them. And even the old history is fun to read about, what a bastard Henry Ford was, or, how Ransom Oldsmobile ended up miserable. And, it just gets kind of interesting to put, the people who have created these things and what became of them, either good or bad, and what drove them to do it. And I don't think that's entirely lost. There have been many car movie, that Tucker movie, for instance, a very high budget, very big Hollywood thing. So it shows you there's a mass market for it. If you remember that movie, I think it was Jeff Bridges.
Yes, it was.
Back. I mean,
yep.
Yeah, very, very interesting movie, but I believe mostly, true. And it is, it's such a part of our lives that we can all relate to it. And I think that's part of the joy of it for me, is that it's just such an accessible thing to everybody. Even the people who don't love cars can be interested in them if the stories are told right.
Well, yeah, because there's so many commonalities between the car that you had at the time that you had it. And it's just, to me, your job is what I would love to be able to do, because that's your gig, that's your thing. And then to be able to have a place where you have the freedom to do that, along with all the other things that go along with it. Let me back up here just a little bit and put this on the screen. Okay. I'm talking to Bill from Curious Cars. On the screen right now is your Gesicht, and along to the left is your logo, which says, "Good morning, Curious Cars." And let me start with this. And put this back up again. There are goats, 2 goats on top of a Porsche. And I have this. I'd like to play this, if I could, just for a moment.
So I've known Peter for many years, and I know him pretty well. And I just don't think that this is going to make him happy. You know, even though that's an old Boxster, it could be any one of his prized vehicles. And we've got 2 of these satanic goats on it. Not 1, but 2 of them. So maybe now it'll happen. Maybe we'll get that company goat roast I've been dreaming about with mint jelly and applesauce and roast potatoes. This could finally be it. Anyway, hopefully they decide to stay with that Porsche, not come over here and start troubling me.
So I must ask, how is it that 2 goats came to be on some dude's Porsche? Who the hell has goats in Florida?
Yeah, an Austrian, apparently. I'll tell you, it's very, very easy. Peter is infatuated by ladies the way that I may be infatuated by cars. And he has this predilection to ended up with really fucking strange ones. And he had a divorce for a very nice woman that I would have kept, quite frankly, and went to this lunatic woman who he found quite appealing, but the rest of us all were thinking this is just not going to end very well at all. And it didn't. But he moved her in, and she brought goats with her because she thought they were cute. He has a big property. It's got a fence. So he let the goats run free, and, he thought it was great up until that moment. And quite frankly, I didn't see the goats very quickly after that. They were gone. There was no roast. There was no dinner. I don't know where the goats went. He's very mysterious when I ask him. But the goats vanished very quickly after that. But that was all female driven, which, for any guy is enough of an answer to immediately know how that happened. She wants the goats. She, gets what she wants. So that's how it went down.
Well, let's put it this way. The goat roast probably wasn't on that property, but even though it's a Boxster, people that have Porsches probably didn't take too well and too carefully to that.
What's funny is people had said that because the goats were making cameos in the videos for a couple of months before this. And in fact, one time they shit all over the driveway, and I'm doing the review, and I took it personally. I do not think those goats did that just organically. I think they knew I would be there. They know where I parked the car to do the video, and it was littered with little shitty goat balls that morning. It was a Z28 or something. And they'd come up and they'd just look at me. These fucking things, they'd come up and just look at me. And it was really unsettling. And I wished them harm. I'll be perfectly frank with you. And, finally, this happened, and it was a change. I between you and me, I kind of miss the goats now because it was kind of fun to riff off them. But at the time, I was really glad they were gone, and I just feel they were after me. That's all I'm going to say. They were after me. They were not neutral characters in this. They enjoyed tormenting me. You could see it in their little goat faces. And that is a key to the video as well, is I get that a lot as people are troubled that I find squirrels disturbing and, cats and birds and such. Well, I mean, I feel like nature wants you dead, and I don't feel enough people are sort of saying this, You get all these people, you see the videos on YouTube of the ladies petting a black bear or something. I mean, that thing's going to kill it, and it should, and it's the natural order of things. And I feel a certain duty to remind people of that no matter what animal it is, it really doesn't matter. It's going to sleep a lot better at night if it killed you.
Well, just ask Timothy Treadwell. I want to go back to, here's Griff. He has a question for you. He says,
right.
I love the Lincoln Mark that you had at the auction a while back. My mom had that car back in the early 80s. And another
Great
gentleman said, hey, this is from Cynical Survival. Bill, any thoughts on the Lincoln LS? Slick looking and underrated, great driver, albeit an unreliable piece of crap.
No, I want to say that was Jaguar based, if I remember right. It was a S-type with Lincoln body panels or something. We had a few at the dealership. Yeah, I mean, it's a fine car, I'm sure, for some. I mean, it's a little bit banal, very nicely appointed inside because it's a Lincoln, but not particularly notable. And quite frankly, it's of the era after my era. You know, I kind of drop off. Cars all started to look like sperm after like 93. And it just sort of, I never went with it. Never got there. I felt the cars of the 80s and 70s and 60s had a lot more, and 50, you'll go on. I just, like with music, I guess it's probably just generational. Again, it's what you grew up with. But yeah, I stopped enjoying new designs after a certain point. And I'm, you looked at it, man, every car looks like every other car today. I mean, there's,
oh God, yes.
Man, you go into an Oldsmobile dealer in 1972 and you want to order a station wagon, you probably have 34 colors you could choose from for the outside and 14 or 15 from the inside. You go to a dealership today, there's going to be maybe 2 interiors, maybe. I mean, unless you're spending a ton of money, at a Highline store. But if you go buy a Hyundai or something, you're basically getting gray inside and maybe 6 colors outside. And everyone just had to start building cars differently. The government, the regulations killed the distinctness of cars. They became so expensive to do all the safety features and backup cameras and parking sensors and all this other shit. And not only expensive, but also complicated. So, they had to change the way they were built, and that changed the way they could be made. And it made the only thing that made sense was to just have fewer available joys to the public in exchange for, the ability to put all this crap in a car. It made them more expensive and made them less reliable. And they're safer. I wouldn't argue that. They're definitely safer than they used to be, but I don't care. I'd rather die in a nice car than live in in a turd. So, they just don't have that distinctiveness, and that went out the window for me probably in the early 90s.
Let's do this right now because we're not going to do any breaks. I just want to remind everyone.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In the chat room, there's a gentleman named T550. Bill, how about fitting in that tour of Naples before you leave? I don't know. Were you even thinking about doing something like that?
Yeah, man. One of the famous things that I do on Curious Cars is make promises that I never keep. It's eternal. It's absolutely eternal. And, I've done a few where I've kept them, and frankly, people should be happy for that because that's a miracle. I have said I was going to do a tour of Naples in a car, and I have not done it. And I will. And I'm not leaving Naples entirely either, because it turns out I still have to make a damn living somehow, So I know how to do that here. I've got a great network, so I'll probably come back here for the winters, when the weather is tolerable, and spend a few months, selling some cars, decking around, doing what I do. And so I'll still be in Naples. I'll still do videos from Peter's driveway and all that. But just, the bulk of the year, assuming it works out, I'll be in this godforsaken wilderness of Western North Carolina that hopefully the natives will take kindly enough to help me. So, I will. To answer his question, yes, I will. One day I will do a tour of Naples, especially because it's kind of easy. So that won't be too hard.
And then there was somebody else in the chat who said, hey, we love the videos, really enjoy it. We're kind of hoping that, are you making any coin off of this, or at least some kind of a return that makes it possible for you to continue?
Yeah, it's a good question. The answer is yes, but not, far from enough. if it could ever be enough. It's very, very, it's fantastic beer. During COVID, it was great. It was 5 times what it was now because, they locked everyone up inside, and I got a ton of views, and I thought I was going to be a millionaire, but that didn't work out. But yeah, I make a little beer money here. It's a stream of income there, a stream of income here. It's certainly not enough to make me comfortable or happy, but it's enough to keep the ball rolling.
And somebody in chat, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Fursnapple. Bill, do you have any advice for flipping cars? Thanks.
Yeah, put a pot over your head and bang a hammer on it as hard as you can, and then get a proper job.
Can I translate as in no, don't?
Yeah, no. Know what you're dealing in. If you're gonna flip cars, man, it's like, you remember those Gordon Ramsay shows where some idiot would buy a restaurant who used to run a steamroller?
Yes.
It's the same thing. A lot of guys think they can get in the car business and make it work. Man, it's hard. It's a hard gig. Guys spend 30 years, before they even reach their peak. It's a horrible way to make a living. First of all, it's horrible. It's retail. It's, everybody already hates you before you even make it to work. You're a used car salesman. And by the time you get there, it just gets worse. So it's much tougher than it appears, and it's not as lucrative as it appears unless the real money in the car business now is in all the addendum shit. In the old days, you could buy a car for X, sell it for Y, and the margin in between was pretty good, and that was your profit. That's gone. Everyone now buys a car for X and sells it for X, and then they make money on the financing or the warranties or the other shit that they pile on you when you're sitting behind the table. And that's where the money is now in the car business, because everything's internet price driven. So it's a whole different world, and a lot of guys got left behind because they couldn't change, and I was one of them. I mean, I did this as a retail gig for 10 years at Auto House or more, and that was our thing. We worked on margin. We didn't do the stuff that the financing money and all that, and Peter, by sheer force of will, he made it work, and it became very lucrative for him. But it's old school, and it really doesn't go on anymore. It's a different business now, very corporate business.
I find this very appropriate. Cynical Survival in chat said something similar, remarkably similar to, you can end up with $1 million flipping cars. How? Start with 2 million.
He nailed it. I know a lot of guys who blew their wad on that, Marty, great example, man. He was a corporate accountant. He says, I'm going to go sell cars and make, a ton of money. Well, he didn't. He very much didn't. So, it's tougher than it looks. It's, you look outside, that looks maybe like a bit of fun, and you get to play around with a lot of cars, and all that is true. But to actually make money is a whole different ballgame. It's a tough racket.
Another comment in chat from T550. He says, hey, Bill, thank you for answering my question. I have watched all 800 of your videos. God help me.
Dear God.
God help me, as you'd say. Somebody created a Best of Bill compilation on YouTube, and I'm going to go to it right here. That is up. And I would be remiss if I didn't play this here. This is, again, another reason that I watch Bill's videos. Well, Bill won't be able to see this, but he can certainly hear it. So let's hit it.
It's been a mixture of things, all of them retarded. I have a feeling this is not going to be a 40-minute video. In the interest of time, in the interest of appeasing the people who may want a shorter video, I'm sure this is going to be a short video. I have absolutely no doubts about that. We're going to try and, cut that down a little bit after that 50-minute sucker on the Mark V the other day. And this video will be like 30 minutes tops. I know I'm going to get shit for it, but the hell with it. Oh, for the love of God. Good morning. This is Bill from Curious.
Okay, I got to ask, did you just think that, hey, it's morning, so that's how I'll start my videos? Good morning.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I did. I don't know where it came from, other than it just felt weird to just start talking. I mean, I felt like I should say something to at least, break the ice first. So it just, yeah, good morning seemed like a natural thing to say. It was. I start videos very, very early. Like video day, I'm probably up by 3:30 and in the car by 4:30. Because nobody does the night drives, which I don't know why that became a thing for me, but I ended up liking it. I drive to Peter's place from wherever shack I'm living in, and show the illumination inside and the cluster and the headlights, and I think it's a part of the car world most people don't show. I don't think I'm great for showing it, but it interests me. I like to see the way a car lights up. And that's a big part of them. Of course, when the days get very long, I get annoyed, and it's lovely in winter when I get to sleep in a little bit. So, but otherwise, yeah, I have to be at it pretty early. So it's always morning. I'm drinking pretty heavily at that point, and
Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got to look. At the risk of alerting the state troopers, I'm not going to lie. A few tugs of bourbon does help me get through. I found there's a couple things in life that help me get through the day, and that is pills and whiskey. And if I'm gonna do a video, then I probably need to have one of each to sort of be who I am, and that's where it went from. The key is not the balance. There's a few times when I've gone a little bit too strong on the flask at the video, and it's too much. Like I can hear it. Oh shit! I'm slurring. That's a bit much now. So finding that balance is key, and I'm still that's still an ever changing task. I'm still working on that one.
But see, that's why I love your videos. That's why the people who love your videos. No one can be you except you. No one does your reviews except you. And just for a microsecond, like I was serious about 20 minutes earlier, I'm going to be serious for a microsecond right here. I watch your videos because nobody else does a video like you. They are entertaining and they're jam-packed, like I said, full of knowledge, which is a clear indicator that you know from whence you speak. Plus, you also get
Cars and Auto House of Naples on a continually shitty, awful, muggy, miserable, muggy, balmy, crappy, basically shit, muggy, miserable, shitty, muggy, drizzly, vicious, horribly muggy, miserable, shitty, muggy, humid, horrible, muggy, devastating, gloomy, shitty, muggy, terribly miserable, generally shitty, miserable, muggy, hot as balls, and miserable Florida Wednesday. The weather that I hate is back in force. I mean, you've got to be shitting me. It is just that awful right now. It's one of the reasons that I'm drinking whiskey in the morning. Absolutely sucks. It's just so depressing. This tropical sun that will bake you to an absolute crisp. I've always dreamed of manning like a radar tracking station in the North Atlantic where it's a constant year-round temperature of...
Okay, excuse me, but I'm crying.
Anybody who lives in this godforsaken town was nodding their heads. That's all I'll say.
Hot as balls.
It is accurate. It is accurate.
Jesus.
You don't know how good it feels to get that out, man. You do not know how good it feels to get that out. If I didn't have that release every time I did it, I'd have moved a long time ago. It's very helpful. It's that hot and that miserable down here. It's a swamp. It's a swamp.
It's Bill's weather report.
Negative 30 or more. And I think I would be very happy there because, frankly, I usually have zero hope about anything. Or probably there are no goats either. And I doubt birds are happy in that kind of weather. So if I see any sort of job opportunity coming up that has that sort of thing available, I'm going to be all over it. I think it's bullshit, but we're going to go with it. The glasses are fogged up. I'm miserable as can be. This morning is starting starting to decline rapidly. Really is quite devastating. Obviously, I'm entirely optimistic and happy most of the time. I'm still continuing with the whiskey therapy. Oh my God, I'm telling you, the coronavirus whiskey, which of course I'm still doing, definitely.
Jesus. Okay, I got to go forward a little bit because, okay.
That's fine. One thing that is not fantastic is the birds. Look at this shit. Right overhead.
The animal
right overhead.
report.
He snuck in when I wasn't looking. You saw that bird fly in. Little son of a bitch. Now look, they're all staging in that tree right there. They're probably raising little bird terrorists in there to come out and peck at me when I'm not looking, waiting for me to not keep an eye out for them. The minute I look away, they're going to swoop down and start pecking at my parts that look soft and fragile. What does the squirrel go up and eat that thing? Has to taste better than nuts. You bastards.
I'm sorry.
Oh boy. Yeah, as I said, nature. It's one of the, I don't trust those things. They have air support, they have air power. They have something we lack, and it's only a matter of time before they figure out how to use it.
Okay, let's see. Let me back up here a little bit. Cynical Survival, who has had some great questions in the past here, says, okay, Bill, Scotch or bourbon?
Bourbon.
Okay, all right. Asked and answered. Brian says, I can't get enough of this shitty, miserable misery. It's so fucking relatable.
I'm telling you, man, anyone in South Florida hears that, they don't think it's all that special. Yeah, that's how I wake up every summer. It's just that hot here. It's just that dreadful. Anyone with half a sense gets the hell out of town.
Griff in the chat says, okay, Bill, how do these older cars drive and ride in general compared to modern cars?
Every car is an individual. It's a weird answer, but it's true. And I'll give you, for example, I just sold a 1956 Dodge Sierra suburban wagon on Bring a Trailer. Beautiful car, really beautiful to look at. But every time I was handed something like this in the past, I said, man, I do not want to drive this piece of shit to 7-Eleven, man. It's going to break down. It's going to be miserable. It's going to somehow screw me over. And it always did. But this particular one, I took on the interstate at 75. It broke well. It steered. It kept running. It didn't explode. It hot started. It cold started. It was great. And that car is what? I don't know, like 56. I can't do the math. It's 69 years old. And you could drive that car daily if you wanted to. I mean, granted, it didn't have power steering, but the woman who drove was the guy's great aunt. He got it from, she had arms like Popeye, and she could kick any one of our asses. But that was a tougher generation. But I mean, so new cars drive pretty well. But you get a 1976 Cadillac Fleetwood, you're not going to get a better ride. You're just not. And that's where Cadillac put all their money, Now they have to put it in like LED accent lighting so the snowflakes are happy. But back then, all the engineers worked on was making sure nobody could feel, running over a toddler or a speed bump or something. So it was a whole different thing. And I do think that the big I think that's why everyone went to pickup trucks, You go back to 1975, nobody had a pickup. The farmer had a pickup truck. But now everyone fucking drives them. And that's because they did away with those big cars. And I think they, the guys like a big proper car, and then they all had to move to trucks. So yeah, I think cars drive great now. They're fine. They're lovely. They're wonderful. But I think if you go back and you get a new 1975, Caddy, it's going to drive better than anything you buy today, for sure. May not be as safe, you probably just crash off the side of a mountaintop in the snow with no traction control or anything, but it's a better drive. It's a complex question. It's not that simple. You get a better feel from the old ones, but you are a hell of a lot safer in the new ones, for sure.
My brother had a see if I get this right. You would probably know the true engine vehicle combination. My brother had a 70 Cadillac. I think that was the year.
Okay.
4-door, which had the 500 cubic inch engine in it.
You got it right. That's exactly right.
That I drove. And it was back in the day when you would have this. I talk about my plush, sumptuous, resplendent, and palatial chat room. This car was like driving your sofa down the street with tufted material. It wafted over bumps and whatnot. I never forgot that car at all, period. And that's back.
It was better. It was better. When you opened the door of one of those things and it looked like a Spanish bordello and it was so comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beyond anything we could ever have today. I'll argue that was a better world. I'll argue that to the death.
It was certainly simpler, easier. And, I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Buick, with the Riviera, some of the other cars, they also had 455s later on in the 70s. And there were 455s, okay, albeit with two barrels, that had, 170 horsepower.
Yeah, they had to detune them. They did.
That's nuts.
They still had torque. They still felt like V8s, But here's beyond that. It was a time when cars were expressing the optimism of the country.
Yeah.
You had all this wasted real estate. You had 2 feet of hood in front of what you needed. You had 18 feet of trunk beyond what you needed, and big dumb chrome switches. And I mean all of this stuff that showed. Hey, I'm optimistic. I'm the future's great. Cars today are built in a pessimistic society. It's a completely different vibe. They don't do anything they don't have to do. Man, the whole car design world for 80 years was about doing shit they didn't have to do. Tail fins.
Oh, yeah.
The jet age. The way that probably there's no more era of car that fit into what I'm talking about in the history than that whole the jet, probably the very late 40s, 50s, that sort of thing going on through the 60s. Every car had rocket taillights and super jet intakes and it showed in America that I think was aspiring. That was great. We felt we were onto something and becoming something and becoming great and it showed itself in the cars and that's gone now, and you had names like Riviera and Eldorado and El Camino and what do you have now? The Europeans won that battle. Every car is like the XD 12.7,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the glamour of it is gone. It's like moving from Pan Am in the 50s to Spirit Airlines. More people get to do it, but it's just not as good.
My dad had a 1958 Olds 88, and in 58 I was 8, and I would love Dad going in. That's back when there were gas stations on every damn corner. Dad would drive in and Dad would wait. Sometimes the guys would come out to try to, that's back when they would provide service, and they'd look all over the back and they couldn't find out where to put the fuel. There's no fuel thing on the side. There's no little flip or there's no little port. And so they look left, they look right, and Dad would have to get out. And in that car, the fuel filler was in the rear tail fin, which you had to slide sideways, and then you found the fuel filler cap within the fin. I love to have Dad go.
How cool is that?
Anytime he wanted to get gas, I wanted to go with Dad so that I could watch all the guys go, where do I put in the fuel? That was grand. It was glorious. The
Daltons of the world. Yeah, exactly. Was there any better sound in the world than that rope bell? when you would drive into the full, that the ding ding, that beautiful crisp analog bell.
Oh yeah.
You know, that you'd hear inside the car. Gone, another thing gone. You know, from our world. And you know, compare that experience to driving up to a 7-Eleven and doing self-serve by tapping your card. I feel bad for the people who've never experienced, you know, just the lovely quality of the world when it was, you know, like we remember it. And, you know, my poor nephew is a snowflake. He came over the other day. My nephew, he's 21 or something. He's that poor guy, you know. But he came, and I gave him a Coke bottle out of the fridge. He asked if he could have a drink. Handed him a bottle cap, bottle opener, and he's like tapping on the top. He had no idea how to use the bottle opener. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And I don't think, by the way, this is normal even for a snowflake. I think most of them can use a bottle opener. I think he's a special case. But I mean, what the fuck, Jack? I mean, it's a bottle opener. I'm getting it. You know? And when I think of the experiences, the sort of the beauty of things that he's missed, I think it's sad for him. He's grown up in a world that's so corporate and so the same everywhere that he just, I think they lose a lot of joy. You know, I think that's why they look for it in weird places.
There is no childhood anymore. That childhood is gone, and I believe that's intentional. First Apple in chat says, one of my favorite Bill clips is when he drove past a dead rabbit on the road and said, that shit looked like Iwo Jima. Okay, that made me laugh.
Yeah. Well, it's some of the fun of doing all the videos without editing, right? You know, you get to sort of riff off what's around you. And I do love having fun. And not that I enjoy dead rabbits, but you know, it's there. I may as well make mention of it.
At least Jeremy Hansen in the chat says also, when do you think muscle cars quit being made?
Well, I don't think ever. I think we're just coming to the end of the true. I mean, look, what do these Hellcats have? 9,000 horsepower, and
yeah,
you know, I think. Okay, the last muscle car of the car that he's talking about is a 1979 Pontiac Trans Am, 400 4-speed WS6 package, if you will. That Pontiac was the only company that kept it going through the malaise. That was it. Not even the Z28 did. Not even Chevy. Same car, and they didn't keep it going. But Pontiac did. So you know, the Burt Reynolds Trans Am, if you will, was truly the last muscle car. Otherwise, if you want to say when was the last general, 71? You know, so the minute the 5-mile-an-hour bumpers and the emissions came in, that was the end of it. And you know, at the time, I get it. You know, I mean, these kids were buying 400 horsepower Chevelles and killing a family of 5 on the interstate. It was bad for the insurance companies, and you know, that the rates went up, cars got more expensive, and you know, we find ourselves in the modern world we're in today because of the way it had to make corporate sense. But so yeah, probably that, you know, probably up until 71, a car company could make a car any damn way they wanted, and it really didn't. There was no outside forces restraining them, not much anyway. And that all changed after the 5-mile-an-hour bumper and the 55 speed limit and the emission stuff. Then all of a sudden they had to build cars to spec, and that changed a lot. And of course, where they went in the 70s was they just turned everything into a, you know, Corinthian leather bordello. But you know, then everyone got sick of that, started buying, you know, Saabs and Volvos, and then everyone started building, you know, Saabs, Volvos, and Mercedes, just with different badges on them. So. Yeah, we could keep going from there. But yeah, I had a long answer to a short question. 71, end of the muscle car era. 79, last, you know, outlier muscle car. But if you can't see that the last 10 years has been the true, you know, the true real 900 horsepower muscle car thing, then you're not paying attention, because they never, no Chevelle could outperform anything they made in the last 10 years. You know, that's as fast as it is. Even a Camry has friggin' 300 horsepower now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's, it's what people want, I guess, but seems silly.
Griff in chat said, as a kid in the 70s, I remember cars having bench seats for the front seats, and I remember never using a seatbelt. Quick cop story as an aside. My first new old cop car as a cop was a 73 Dodge, Monaco, I believe, bench seat. I was a trainee. My training officer was 6'4" and 280 pounds. And he had his knees in his chin whenever I would drive. Brian DeRocher also says, I want to say Bill's favorite car is the 85 to 89 Mercedes 560 SEC. If he had to have one car or a Mercedes wagon, or maybe the general question is, okay, is your favorite car a Mercedes 560 SEC? And if not, which car?
Okay, I do not. I could not narrow it down to a favorite car. It's impossible. It's like your favorite song. Come on, there's too many that are fantastic in their own way. Because of Auto House and because of the 80s, when it was all Benzes and such, I got a love for the European stuff. And I do love a 560 SEC. If I had to own one, it would be a 123 wagon, which I actually do have one now. Which, the 300 TD, those early 80s Mercedes diesels. And there will never be an era like that again, where people like that built cars like that. There is no more German engineering. It's gone. That doesn't exist anymore. No more Germans build anything. Back then they did, and they were signing the pieces of wood, like the craftsman who made the center console wood, he would make it, he would put his little dots on the back of it and then install it. And those cars, there were no accountants at Mercedes then. They just, built a car to be what they wanted it to be, and it would cost what it would cost at the end of it. And they decided with that 123 car that they were going to build the ultimate serviceable, long-lasting automobile. And there is no part of that car that isn't made to be, it's a forever car. It's made to be owned and driven for as long as you're willing to maintain and do it. And I think that's just really cool. And I don't know that any other car, in my era anyway, that I know very well has been built to that level for that reason. The styling was of moderate importance, but not huge. It was more about that thing was going to be fucking indestructible. And they did pull that off, and that's why I like that thing so much. So, yeah, if I had to narrow it down to one car, that could well be it. Because I know I even if you abuse it, it's still going to keep. It's like a Spanish prostitute, or so it's gonna be there for you. It doesn't have many better options. So it'll accept its lot in life and go with you. So that's it's a fantastic car. That's probably the one I'd choose.
Folks, I'm BZ. That is Bill from Curious Cars. I want to remind everybody.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Unleashed Jeremy Hansen in chat says, hey, do you own or have you owned a truck?
It's all I own. Yeah. I mean, my daily driver is a truck.
Okay.
For the last 10 years, I was never a truck guy, ever. Got my first truck, I don't know, 10 years ago. It was like when I met my first cigarette, it was just love at first sight. And I've never looked back. It's been trucks ever. It's very difficult for me to go back to a car even. Very hard. And yeah, so yeah, I guess I'm a truck guy now.
Let's continue. Oh, damn it. Oh, I de-res that thing. Let me bring it back. Okay, in the meantime.
Fine. One thing that is not fantastic is the birds. Look at this shit. Right overhead. Right overhead. He snuck in when I wasn't looking. You saw that bird fly.
Let's go another one.
Let's just get into this thing. When I first saw this car at the dealership, it just reminded me of how bloody annoying JDM people are. They're like even worse than like the Android phone enthusiast. Oh, look, this 1,200 horsepower hyper boosted Supra is way faster than a stock Shelby GT500. It's dipshits with a glowy band around their neck. It's got a 12 ZZZ E18F engine, man. It's a Hello Kitty belt buckle.
sorry.
I stand by those words. I stand by every word.
God, that ought to be the name of my 16th garage band. Hello Kitty Belt Buckle.
Well, look, man, I don't know what that bomb did to those people, but can we all agree they're a little fucking strange?
Jesus.
I mean, the shit that comes out of Japan is more than a little disconcerting, and to this day, so that is a very, very strange. And I do like. And I'm sorry to just jump in, but I've got to say one of my great joys in car reviews is sort of bullying the bullies, in the sense that when I review a Porsche, I want to remind those Porsche people, that Professor Porsche was Hitler's favorite engineer. I feel I need them to know that. And, I want to remind the Japanese about the comfort women and the terrible things that went on there. These cars have been, anybody who's troubled by a Tesla, for Christ's sake, are they going to hop in a Volkswagen? These were some terrible, terrible people who built these things. Included Porsche and Suzuki and Toyota and Mercedes. They were pretty rough cats, and it seems like that gets glossed over. Everyone loves to talk about how dreadful the United States is, and we're the fucking sisters of charity compared to these other countries.
Oh God, yes.
My nephew and other, oh my God, the United States. Man, go look at the history of like Portugal. Just pick a country and see what they did to these people. And lay off, man. Be proud for coming from a place that has at least tried to done some good, and didn't try to addict people to heroin or otherwise destroy them. So anyway, I digress. But I think it's very, very important to remind people of the connections of these cars to some really bad players in history. I think that's a lot of fun, and I get joy from that.
But that's part and parcel of the whole thing about the car itself, about each individual car, and that I appreciate about what it is that you do in a review is, it's the car, you'll open up the hood. If there is anybody who is a master at opening a big damn hood one-handed, it would certainly be Bill of Curious Cars, having most def mastered that shit. Cynical Survival said, we need a pay-per-view of Bill boxing Doug DeMuro. And right after that, Brian said, Doug would not get Bill's humor at all.
Well, I'll make an admission. I've never watched a Doug DeMuro video. I just can't get past the thumbnails. And I'm not a big YouTuber. I don't want to be, I don't want to copy anyone subconsciously or something. So I avoid watching other car reviews, other than Top Gear, which is, of course, you can't. It's such a bloody fantastic show that you can't miss it. But yeah, I don't watch those. God bless him. He's doing great. Those guys are all king of the hill, but they're not doing what I like doing.
Who wouldn't want to watch all those three guys on Top Gear? Anybody besides those original three are pretenders to the throne, and they suck. Also, here's another question. Bill, what car do you dislike the most?
Oh, God, where do I start? I hate more cars than I like. The two come to mind, BMW i3, little fucking German toaster, and a miserably Ghibli. The poser car. Both of them are poser cars. One's for idiots to pretend they have some, I love the earth, I love the world. Actually, a great story. Andrew, a good friend of mine, Andrew, owned out of Europa, a different version, the mechanical side of it. A terrible, terrible human being and a practical joker. He leased an i3 because he likes all this sort of techie, goofy stuff. And I guess the thing has some kind of a pedestrian avoidance system that they built into it, because it's made for big city streets or whatnot. So he gets this mechanic that goofball that he has and says, hey, we're going to test this system out. It puts the guy in front of all the shop bays, drives the car at him and hits him. And driving, goes over the top of the car. It doesn't, not super fast to where the guy's got broken anything, but he's a little bit fucked up. And Andrew gets there, he's like, oh shit, man, I'm so sorry. I had that system turned off. Can we try that again? So he does it again, hits the guy again. The poor guy is like, you know what? And Andrew gets out. I forgot. I didn't get that option. I didn't get that option. And yeah. And I mean, that's Andrew to a T. He's just the goofiest sucker out there. But he comes up with those things that I find so funny. You can't help but laugh at him. Nobody else would think of that, you know? He just gets a guy to, you know, hits him. I think he once paid the detailer $13 to eat a dragonfly. That was funny too, but that guy would do anything. But yeah, the i3, what a little stupid piece of shit. And if you look at their, the brochure for it, it's, you know, door panels made from recycled materials, you know, and I mean, people used to make lampshades out of people. They have a lot of nerve doing this kind of shit. So, I don't like that car. And the Ghibli is such a poser car. It's a Chrysler 300 with different skin on it, you know, to make people, they actually pipe in the exhaust sound through the speakers.
I heard about that. That is so over the top stupid.
Exactly. You know, Enzo Ferrari didn't need to do that. And, you know, he was a bit of a douchebag, but he knew how to make a car that made people's pulse tick, and he didn't have to pipe it through a 6x9 to do it. So yeah, there's just a lot of goofy cars out there, most of them modern. And I felt that way about Teslas until, you know, I have to admit, I kind of, you know, became a bit of a fan for other reasons. And you know, but it, you know, it's driving an iPhone basically, but it's, I will get, you know, like the Cybertruck. You remember the Plymouth Prowler? That car looked like a hot rod.
Yes.
It came out, and you know, a lot of people hate on that car, but they built it, man. They built it, and it was unique, and it was interesting, and people liked it, and it was cool. And I'll give the same vibe to the Cybertruck. You know, I mean, you look at it and you think, okay, that, you know, looks like a doorstop, and it does, but it doesn't look like anything else on the road. It's unique. And I don't think a car necessarily has to be great or loved by me to be appreciated by me. It can, it just being unique is enough in this world where nothing else is. So I gave a lot of props to Chrysler for building that Prowler, and I'll give Elon some props too for the Cybertruck. You know, the other cars are kind of vanilla, but the Cybertruck is unique, and love it or hate it, it's definitely different. And I think that's enough in today's world to give it some credit.
Folks, I'm talking to Bill from Curious Cars. Bill, you're in Florida, so I get the importance of various nooks and crannies in cars created just for the various makes and models of handguns. And as you so clearly point out in your videos, which again make my ass laugh, a really practical addition to your videos, I might add. So I did. But where did you get the thingy about chipper Canadians and perhaps how many you can cram into a back seat?
I'm glad you asked that. I hope we can get this out so I don't get asked it anymore. I'm kidding. Very, very. So I worked at Auto House. Basically in Naples, it's a seasonal town. So everyone comes into town and buys, you know, they buy a condo, and then they say, okay, you got to go buy a car to park in the condo. So that's what we sold at Auto House, are condo cars. I sold so many CLKs, convertibles, the middle old ladies. I mean, if I see another one, I'm going to vomit. But basically, that was my gig, and teaching them how to keep them for months till they came back. The Canadians, they would always come a little late in the season because they don't really enjoy spending money. It's not their favorite thing, and they would come, you know, towards the end of the season when the rental prices went down a little, and they'd come buy a car. And they usually have like 3 or 4 Canadian families with them, you know, for whatever reason. So it would be this whole flock of Canadians. And one of the worst, I could go on. They're like the Asians a little bit, and forgive all the ethnicity, but car people need to know this stuff. But when you're selling a car to a Canadian, they perfectly mimic a real customer. You actually may think you have one all the way until the end when they give you some offer that's so off the charts, it becomes funny. But when they did buy a car, on the few rare occasions, they would squeeze like 4 couples they would be 6 of them in like a Mini Cooper convertible. It was like a clown car. And they would drive off there, like 3 in the front, 3 in the back, in some tiny little convertible. And it's a phenomenon that never happened with my American customers. It was always just the husband and the wife, and they would drive off and it looked perfectly normal. Every time a Canadian couple bought a car, there'd be like 3 more Canadian couples with them, and they'd all drive off in the car together. Even if they had left the car they showed up with to go try it out or something, eat at a place where they could have a meal of equal or lesser value for free. But and it was just, they squeezed themselves in it. And it's maybe not the great answer, but it's the answer. I never saw another race of people or ethnicity, whatever you want, country, fit so many people into a little car in Naples with the top down. And, that's why I sort of try to help them by showing them which cars they may be able to fit more of themselves in.
Let us continue.
I even hate using the phrase social media. It just makes me sick thinking about it. If that's not a word that makes you want to take an AK-47 and, well, anyway, Facebooks and TikToks and TikToks and Instagram, which I believe is a cocaine delivery service of some kind. And all of a sudden we're in this, ultra digital internet world where you can share a picture of your private parts with some woman you found in Sweden 2 days before. It's a very different world. What the hell happened? A variety of other stupid things that snowflakes need so they can stop worrying about pronouns and climate change and just enjoy themselves. So, phone going off again. I believe there's CarPlay and Android shit. It's all in there if you want it. Dumb enough for me to understand. Oh, come on. I don't understand that at all, and that's irritating as hell.
I'm sorry. These are great videos. You mentioned Tesla. Here's your Tesla video. Let me forge ahead here just a bit.
Cars on, what is quite frankly a very nice, proper Florida March morning. The temperature is probably in the 60s, maybe close to 70. It's not humid for a change. And, this is the kind of weather that makes me happy to occasionally be in southern Florida. Unfortunately, by the time noon rolls around, it's going to be in the mid 80s, which doesn't sound bad until you factor in this horrible tropical sun, which just bakes the shit out of you. I mean, 85 here, even in the winter, is different from 85 anywhere else. It's brutal. To be outside trying to do anything. You still want to get inside because it's like that Twilight Zone movie where the sun was getting closer. Not movie, I think it was the show, and everyone was burning up, and it just sucked. And that's what it's like here. So in that vein, that's why I have now finally closed, as of yesterday, on a house in North Carolina.
Let me stop right there. First, let me ask you, what did you think of the Tesla? Well, actually, 3 questions. First, what did you think of the Tesla overall?
Which one? Are we talking the Cybertruck?
Yes, the Cybertruck, yes.
The Cybertruck. It was weird, and I know that's an obvious answer, but it's a true answer. The controls are weird. I hopped in it, and it took me, and I'm a little bit of a car guy, it took me 45 seconds to put it in reverse. Before, and once you figure it out, you figure it out. But none of their controls and systems are based on any existing theory or architecture. So it's learning a whole new. It's like I think, speaking of Top Gear, Clarkson was talking about Citroen, and he said, the way you make the turn signal come on is you'll lick the sun visor. It's like the French. They knew what a car was, but they'd never actually seen one when they designed it. And I think he has these snowflake kids designing the cars, and they've never driven a car in their life, or maybe their mom's Hyundai, and they don't know. So they create operating controls that don't relate to anything anyone knows, and there's a real learning curve with those cars. And I don't know, people, thank God they self-drive, because I fucking crash into everything driving that thing, just trying to figure out how to go to the next radio station. It's a complex, computer-driven car, It's very fast. It's insanely fast, which, you know, I think the whole electric car thing is ruining the world of hot rodding, because what's the point?
It's an
If you can go
appliance.
buy yeah, I mean, you know, the thing does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds or whatever the hell it is. Well, why go build a race car? It goes 0 to 60 in 2.8 after spending $80,000 on a Camaro? You know, it doesn't make sense. So, I enjoyed the notoriety of it. I was really hoping someone was going to paint a swastika on it. I enjoyed that video too, because it gave, you know, I like, again, Riff and I went to AutoZone and I bought like those fender vents and a hula girl. I was trying to disguise that I was in a cyber truck so I wouldn't be attacked by Antifa, you know? And I thought if I could get enough AutoZone accessories on the outside, it wouldn't look like a cyber truck anymore, but that did fail. People were still able to identify it.
Damn it, Jim. There's a final question here in the chat. Did you ever have a Cuban want to ship a car back to Cuba?
No, that never happened. I've shipped cars to a lot of places, but never Cuba. And anyway, what would they do? They put pontoons on the side of it, and, you know, some kind of outboard motor and get back there. They're not, you know, these people are very industrious. They're not going to use a boat.
And finally, I'd like to throw this in. You have a video that's up on the screen right now. I'm not playing it, but it says, "My camper trip from hell."
Oh, God.
So maybe you can let us know what's going to be happening with you in the not too terribly distant future.
I bought a camper. I cheaped out because of a friend of mine who sort of encouraged me to cheap out instead of doing what I wanted to do. I decided to go to Tuscaloosa. And actually, the comments on YouTube are great, and I read every one. I don't answer them because I've always been I've answered a few, but I want people to know I do read every one. And in that video, I said there's no good roads to Tuscaloosa because it's true. I mean, there's no good way to get there. You just can't get there from here. And he said, "Man, there's no good roads to Tuscaloosa. Sounds like it's on the country charts." And I thought, yeah, I appreciated that. But you don't buy a camper at a repossession auction and decide you're going to live in it the first night. And I did, and none of my friends stopped me, and that's why I now have realized I don't have friends. And I'm wiping the slate clean of these people because somebody should have intervened. You know, when you had 90 whiskeys and you're heading towards your car, your friend's supposed to say, "Hey, Bill, you know, hey, no, bad idea." None of them did that. And the things that I saw and touched and tasted, smelled, I can never unexperience, and they're with me. And that was a really bad camper trip. I did buy a place up there. I've been threatening it for years to get out of Florida. People always said I'd never do it. Well, I'm doing it. And in fact, I'm going up there on Sunday. I've found a shop, property to build a shop on.
Oh, nice.
That was. Yeah, some kind of burned down meth lab or something. So it's kind of cheap.
Of course.
Yeah, I have a theme in my life. So, but you know, I mean, compared to Naples prices, like it was free. You know, I mean, it's such a joy buying property somewhere other than here. I mean, like if I stuck my camper on the side of the road, I could probably ask $650 for it. Naples is just a very terrible place to try and get land or do anything. And there's a lot more opportunity, I think, in the rest of the country. So I'm heading up there, and you know, don't know anyone, don't have a feel for anything. Just I feel in awe every time I walk out of a grocery store and see a mountain behind me. And I think that's the most beautiful fucking thing I've ever seen, and I want to be here. And the weather, of course, you know, in the mountains is a lot cooler, hopefully, and that's the plan. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, it's probably about time to wrap up. It shouldn't shock you that it's almost 2 hours on right now. So thank you for being here for so very long. It's going to take a while for you to. It's going to take a while for you to move. So in the meantime, until you get there, do you have any videos planned, or are you just concentrating on getting everything down the road?
No, I do. I'm building a Camaro project. That's getting a video. The wagon that I'm doing there's an S10 Baja that'll get a video, and a buddy Suzuki Samurai. But I'm trying to pile all those in amidst the other crap that eternally happens and all the horrible people I have to herd around. So I do have some videos coming, but they're not coming as quickly as I'd like.
Well, I think that's about it. I know it's it's almost 1 a.m. It's 12:53 p.m. where you are. Bill of Curious Cars, it has been an honor and a pleasure talking to you tonight in the saloon. Thanks for being here. Thanks for staying up so late. And I'd like to go back and remind everybody where you can find Bill. Here is his site on X, Cars Curious, at Cars Curious. Here is his site, his video channel on YouTube, Curious Cars. Go to YouTube, fill in the field, ask for Curious Cars, ask for Bill by nature. And also here, curiouscars.com, curiouscars.com. So, Sir Bill, thank you for being here. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, watch, subscribe, give a big thumbs up to his sites, follow Bill all over his media nation, if you would please. Thanks so kindly, sir.
Very kind. Been my pleasure. And the late night, no problem. I robbed one of my nephews' Adderall, so I'm in good shape.
Cool.
Otherwise, thank you for having me. It's been great fun.
When you go rollicking a little bit later, would you ever consider coming back to chat?
Absolutely. It's been a treat. I'd come back anytime.
Thank you so kindly, sir. Appreciate it. Folks, that was Bill of Curious Cars. I am BZ. I'm not going to really have an outro per se tonight. I guess I could. I wasn't planning it, but okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for being here on BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show to listen to Bill from Curious Cars. I had a great time. I hope that you had a great time. Thanks to KLRN for carrying me as well. My greatest thanks to Rick Robinson for doing so. Promotional consideration, as per normal, is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, also by Shure and Electro Voice microphones. To the people that manufacture my board, the Arrakis, which screwed up because it wouldn't let me Bluetooth the phone so people could call in, but they weren't going to call in anyway, because that's the nature of podcasting. People don't have the gall and the temerity to call in, you cowards. And also, promotional consideration by Pratt & Whitney, dependable engines producing thrust you can trust. Also, tiaras are by My Little Pony. And, of course, ever so many thanks to BZ's KC-131. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, stop right there. Let's do it right. BZ, take that out. Let's rewind the tape. Thank you. And now, thanks also to BZ's KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom he shall be consorting in less than a half hour. Okay, continue, Vera. Jesus. Thanks for listening, everybody. God bless. Take care. Be safe. I mean you.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.